Hey guys, Jules here with Ableton Tips, and today we're going to be making this progressive house loop. Okay, so let's just make sure we're in arrangement view by hitting this button over here or tab on our keyboard. First thing I want to do is just make our drone note, which is just how I like to start all my songs. So we're just going to go to our first MIDI channel over here and highlight from 17 up till 25. That's 8 bars. And I'm going to hit Control Shift and M. And we're going to be working in A sharp minor today. So let's just place our note here on A sharp 3 and just drag it out across the whole MIDI channel. And then we're going to find a sound called Descending Dreams. So if we go into sounds here, and I'm just going to expand this a little bit here so we can see what we're reading. And we go to Descending Dreams. It's in ambient and evolving. Double click on that. And let's just hear that. Okay, that's good. And I'm just going to turn down the volume here by dragging the slider down a bit. I just want to add a little bit of reverb to this. So we're going to search hybrid. And because we're in sounds, that's not going to work. So we have to go down to all results, and then we can double click on hybrid reverb. And I'm just going to change the algorithm to shimmer here and turn the dry wet up to 100%. And that's kind of pushed it out to the sides, and it's just a bit better for the final mix down. Okay, next up we're going to make our arpeggio. And before we do that, I just want to change the tempo here to 124 BPM. So you just click up there and you can type 124. And then we're going to make another MIDI clip just by doing the same thing before. Highlight, Control Shift M. And then we're going to grab operator. So just type operator. And we're going to actually design the sound ourselves, but let's first put down a few MIDI notes just so that we can hear the sound while we're designing it. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in over here so I can see the notes more clearly. And we're going to place a note here at A sharp 3. At the moment, it's just a normal sine wave. That's fine. Let's just make the first part of our melody. Okay, so the first part of our melody is going to go like this. And then we're going back down to the A sharp. Then we're going to go up to F here. And then down to the D sharp. And then up to G sharp. And then we're going to place another note here at A sharp. And I'm just going to zoom out over here, and we're going up an entire octave here to the next A sharp. So it sounds like this. And then back down to the G sharp, and then dropping back down to the A sharp. And then we're going up to the C sharp over here, down to the A sharp, up to the C, and then down to the G sharp. Okay, but we want to add another note down here because this is kind of like the bottom of our ARP, which kind of has its own rhythm that if you focus on the ARP for long enough, you'll start picking up this rhythm. If I just mute these, you'll hear the rhythm over here. So I've just hit 0 on my keyboard to mute those. And I want another note over there. So if I had to loop this section, then you'd be able to hear the melody or the rhythm. Okay, so let's just re-enable these and then we can hear it. Okay. I'm just going to mute this string here so we don't have to listen to it the entire time. So now you can see it's being looped over and over again, but I don't want it to be completely the same every time. So I'm going to turn off loop here, and then we'll just look at it the same way that we saw it before, which was we're seeing it in these full 8 bars over here. And I'm just going to copy this over 4 times. So I just highlighted that all and I hit Control D, and that's how you just duplicate. And on the last note, I'm going to bring this G sharp up here. And then we're going to duplicate this entire section over, Control D. And then on this last little section over here, I'm going to take this C sharp note and shift it up to D sharp. And that's going to sound like this on the last one. So you've got 2 small variations, this one happening over here, and then this one. Okay, so let's design a sound for this now. Instead of just using this sine wave, we're going to change this to a saw wave. And let's bring down the frequency a bit. Let's bring the filter down to around 600. And then bring the envelope up a bit. We can get it sounding nice and bright. And let's just bring down that volume. Bring down the resonance a bit. Okay, then I just want to change the filter here to PRD, which is just a different model, and that gives us the ability to add some drive to it. And so I want to give the filter a bit of drive. Okay, then we're just going to shape the envelope of the first oscillator here. We're going to click on envelope, and we're going to bring down this little box over here. We're going to give it about 900 milliseconds of decay. And then let's give it a bit more release. I just want to hear those notes slightly overlapping a bit. And then we're going to go into another oscillator over here. We just need to make sure that we set it to serial mode, so that these oscillators are all coming out independently. They're not modulating each other. So we just got to click over here and change the algorithm by clicking on this one. Okay, so now I just want to thicken up the sound a bit by going to another oscillator and just pitching this down 1 octave by changing the coarse to 0.5. And I just want to lay this in. I'm going to change it from a sine wave to a saw wave. And we're just going to slowly turn it up until we can hear it. Okay, that's good. And I also want to add a little bit of noise to it. So I'm going to click on this oscillator, add noise white. Okay, so next up we just want to try and spread this out a bit, and we can turn on this pitch envelope too, because we want a bit of pitch attack. So I'm just going to turn on this button over here, then that enables this pitch mode. And I'm going to bring down the decay because it's going to, otherwise it's too long. I'll show you what I mean. So let me just turn up the pitch envelope to 100% here. And now you can really hear that pitch happening. But I just want a really short pitch decay right at the beginning. So I'm going to bring this down to like 13. And that just gives it a bit more attack. And then we're going to turn the spread up to 100%. So that's nice and wide. And then lastly, I want to add a little bit of movement using this LFO. So if we turn on the LFO, currently you'll hear it's mapped to the pitch. So you'll hear this. But we don't want it to do that. And we can change the destination here by turning off A, B, C, D and turning on the filter. And then the envelope is going to be modulating the filter up and down. So now if I play that, and turn off this little button here, this R, to turn off retrigger, we'll hear the LFO now closing and opening the filter. As long as I turn up the amount a bit. Okay, it's a bit quick, so I'm going to slow it down. And we don't want the amount to be that much. I'm just going to turn that down a bit. Okay, then we can go here into time, and we can also add a little bit of random panning to just slightly pan the voices around every once in a while. Okay, I think that's quite a nice setup. And now we can just add some delay to it. So we're just going to search delay. And we're just going to bring down the dry wet a bit and turn on ping pong. And then lastly, some hybrid reverb. And I'm also going to be using the shimmer algorithm, just because I really like the high end of that. If I make it 100% wet, you can hear what I mean. If we compare that to the normal one, very different sound. And we can take out some of the mid-range using this EQ over here, so I'm just going to drag this up. Okay, so I'm happy with how that reverb sounds now. I'm just going to bring down the dry wet. To around 35 there. Okay, we also need to EQ this, just because we've added noise and stuff and a bit of distortion. There's going to be a lot of muddiness happening around here. So we're just going to grab an EQ 8. And then just have a look at this. You can see all of this noise and stuff happening down there. I'm just going to cut out some of that with this low cut. Drag it up to here. Okay, next up is the bass line. I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and T. And we're going to make another MIDI clip. This time I'm just going to do it halfway. And then we'll just loop it. So I'm just going to hit Control, Shift, and M. And then we're going to use Operator again for the bass line. So let's just open Operator. And now we're just going to place some notes down before we design our sound. So I want to go down all the way to the bass regions. So let's try A sharp 0. Yeah, that sounds quite subby. And we're going to make like quite a rolling kind of progressive bass line. So we're going to be using lots of 16th notes here. I'm going to place a note here on this first 16th and then just hit Control D a few times. And while we've got these 4 down, let's first make the sound, because it's kind of hard to create a vision for the track if you don't have the sound right when it comes to the bass line, I find. Okay, so I'm just going to change the first oscillator's wave to a saw. And we're going to bring the filter down to around here. And I'm just going to solo this quickly so we don't have to hear everything else every time. And then we're going to go into A over here. And we're going to go to the envelope shape and just drag this down so it becomes a bit more plucky. Just like that. So a decay of 566 is probably fine. Okay, so then we're going to go into our filter and just add some envelope amount here. Let's add a little bit of drive to it too. So we're going to just change this from clean to PRD. And then give it a little bit of drive. That sounds like enough to me. Okay, we're going to click on the envelope again here. And we're just going to bring down the decay of the filter. Let's bring up the envelope amount even more. And then I'm going to go and just change the algorithm by clicking over here to serial and go into this oscillator and pitch it up to 2 so that it's 1 octave higher, and change it to a saw wave. And then we're just going to turn this one up. And I also want to add some spread to this. I don't want it to be just dead down the center. I think 100 is fine. And now we can listen to these all in context with each other. Okay, so now we can make our bass line. I'm just going to turn on the metronome so we can kind of feel out a groove. And so it's going to go. Let's turn down this operator a bit. And then we can go do 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 do. Okay, then let's copy this over down to the F sharp. So just highlighted that all and then hold Control and click and drag. And then let's hear it. Okay, so now we can make a little bit of a change over here. Let's drag out this note. So it's just a little bit different. We don't want to repeat the exact same pattern every time, otherwise it's going to get a bit, tiring to the ear. And then let's make these ones 16ths. And then we can go up to the G sharp over here and just duplicate this by holding Control D. And we can make this pattern kind of follow this same pattern over here. So I'm just going to actually drag this, hold Control, and drag this down here. And then this one matches this one. So we've got like an A, B, A, B. Maybe we should make it like an A, B, A, C. Might be a good idea. We can do that by, let's say, just dragging out one of these notes or something. Okay, and then we're going to drag this MIDI clip across. As long as loop is enabled here, we can drag this over and it'll just duplicate it. And then I'm going to increase the entire length of this by 2. So I'm going to hold Alt and click on one of these arrows just to close them all. Then drag or highlight all of this and then hit Control D. And then expand it all again. And what I want to do in this repetition is just change the bass line slightly. So I'm going to drag this note on this one up to here. So it goes like this. And then we can maybe drag this one up to here. So now I've just got a bit of change between this first section and the second section. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly name these and recolor them just for organization's sake. So we're going to click over here and hit Control R and name this pad. And this one can be melody or ARP. And then we're going to hit tab again. And then this is going to be our bass. And then I just want to color my bass a nice pink color over here. And we're going to make the ARP and the pad this little bluish color. Select them all and right click and hit Assign Track Color to Clips. You can close all of these and group them by selecting them all and hitting Control G. And then we can rename the group instruments. And now it's time to add some drums to our loop. Okay, so we've provided this progressive house beat free sample pack in the description. You can go and download it now to get the same drum sounds as me. And we're going to grab our kick over here, which is going to be this kick. And we're just going to drop it onto our timeline on this audio channel. And I'm just going to zoom in over here and place a kick on every beat. So I'm just going to highlight this section and hit Control D, then highlight this whole section and hit Control D until we have the entire loop covered. And I'm just going to turn down the kick a bit. Okay, that sounds good. And let's add some sidechain to it. And the reason for sidechain is we just want the instruments to all be ducking a bit when the kick hits, so that we don't have the kick being masked by all the instruments. So we're just going to search for a compressor here. And we're going to expand this and enable sidechain audio input from our kick. And then we just have to drag this line down below where we see these kick waveforms. I'm going to bring up the frequency here, so we're only taking the input from the high end of the kick, and we get a nice point to work with instead of this, long kick. So you'll see the shape of the waveform changes as I adjust this frequency. And what I'm looking for is a nice point, and that looks good to me. So I'm just going to bring this down. Bring up the release a bit. Okay, that sounds good. Then next up, I'm going to go back into our sample pack, and we're going to add this low percussion loop. And these are just going to add a bit of groove with the bass and the kick. So I'm just going to create a new MIDI channel, a new audio channel here below this one by hitting Control T. And then we can drag this low perc loop in here. And yeah, we just need to turn that down until we can just hear it over the kick a little bit. Yeah, and that's just adding a nice bit of groove to it. And I'm just going to drag this out so that it loops through the whole section. Okay, next up we need to add our clap. And we're only going to bring the clap in on the B section of this drop. The first section is not going to have any clap. So we're going to add a new MIDI channel. We're going to do this with MIDI. So I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and T. I'm just going to highlight 2 beats over here. And I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and M. And then we're going to place a note here at C3. And we're just going to drag it on this 1.2. We're just going to drag it all the way across. And then we can drag this all the way across, and that places a note on every second kick for us. You can see here it lines up with every second kick. Okay, so now we can double click on the MIDI channel here, and we can just take this clap and drop it over here. And then you can hear the clap playing. If the clap doesn't sound right, you can always just check that your note is on C3 and not another note, because this will either pitch it up or down. Okay, let's just bring down our clap a bit. And just while we're doing that, I'm going to turn this pad down even more. Okay, next up, let's add some hats, and we're just going to use the stock 909 hats that come with Ableton for this, and we're going to process them a bit to fit the mix nicely. Let's add another MIDI channel, Control Shift T. And a quick way to add a MIDI clip, instead of hitting Ctrl-Shift-M, you can just double click and it'll add a clip the size of the whatever block you're zoomed into. And we are going to do the 8th note hat first. So we've got to add a note here and highlight this and just hit Ctrl-D and another note there. And that's just the, the offbeat hat. So we're going to search for 909 hi-hat, go to all results. Oops, 909 hi-hat. And we're going to grab this open hat and just drag it. We just have to double click on MIDI over here and then we drag it onto here. And we can hear this hat now. It's too loud, I'm going to turn it down. It's also a bit too thick and full, especially for this style, so we're going to high pass it a bit. We don't actually need to use an EQ. We can click on controls here and we can just go to this filter section over here and change the filter to a high pass filter. And we can bring down the frequency to, let's say, around 3 kilohertz. That sounds good to me. I'm just going to drag this out. Okay, it's also a bit long, the hi-hat, so we can just shorten it here using sample, and we can change it to one-shot mode, and just drag this point down. And now it's just cutting off a bit strangely, so we can use the fade out to fade it out a bit. Okay, that sounds good to me. Let's add our 16th note hi-hat pattern now. So we're going to hit Ctrl-Shift and T for a new MIDI clip. And I'm just going to double click here to add on MIDI clip. And we go to C3 and we're just going to double click over here and add notes to every 16th. And highlight this and do that again, Ctrl-D. Drag this out all the way to the end. We're going to grab our closed hi-hat and place it over there. Way too loud, we're going to bring that down. We're going to do something similar to before. We're going to go into controls and we're just going to change this to a high pass filter and bring it down. Turn it up maybe a bit more. And then we can add a bit of random pan to this over here. And I'm also going to steal the compression from here, the sidechain compression. I'm going to hit Ctrl-C and then just hit Ctrl-V over here. And that's just going to make our hi-hats pump a little bit, which can feel quite nice. Probably want this to be a little bit longer, the release. I'm going to bring it up to around 70. And I'm just going to bring this threshold up a bit. If I solo that, you can hear the compressor. If I turn it off, then you can hear that bounce that it adds. I'm also going to sidechain this to our open hi-hat, just because it's a bit more natural. You don't really hear in real life, it's impossible to play an open hat and a closed hi-hat at the same time. So if we just take this compressor over here and hit Ctrl-D, we can just change the audio input on this second one to the open hi-hat. And we can bring down the threshold a little bit. And also bring down the release quite short. And now every time I open a hi-hat plays, this will also duck away. Okay, let's just hear our drums now. Next up, I want to add a bit a few snares here and there just to give it a bit more of like that warehousey dance floor kind of feeling. So let's go back to our sample pack, and we're going to add this snare over here. I'm going to add it into the instruments group just because I want them to be sidechained. So I'm just going to hit Control T in the group and grab a new channel here, new audio channel. And let's just drag this onto the audio channel and see where it might fit. I think over here somewhere. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And I want to add a little bit of delay to it. So we're going to search delay here. I'm going to change this to 1 and ping pong and bring down the dry wet a bit. And let's just hear that. Yes, that sounds pretty cool. We could probably add a little bit of reverb to it too. So I'm just going to grab hybrid reverb again. And I'm going to leave it on dark hall because I want it to feel like a hall reverb. I'm also going to go to the EQ and just take out most of the low and mid range because I don't want that to get all muddy. Bring down the dry wet to about 30%. Okay, and then I want to repeat that over here at the end, but I want it to be slightly different. So we're going to use a different sample here. I'm going to go back into the free sample pack and, the free sample pack. And we're going to grab this orchestral snare fill. And I'm just going to hit Control T for a new channel. And we're going to place this right here at the end. Just make sure that warping is correct. Okay, that's fine. And let's just hear that. And let's just drag that down a bit. Okay, so it sounds a bit strange to me to have a drum fill without a crash, so I usually like to add a crash or some sort of effect after that. I'm going to hit Control T over here, and I'm just going to add this effect hit over here. And let's just hear that. I'm going to turn down the volume on it. Yeah, I quite like that volume. And I'm going to turn off warping, just because I don't like it when effect sounds are warped. They don't need to be warped because they're not rhythmic. And I'm going to add some delay to it. So let's just search delay. And I want this to really ring on for ages. So I'm going to set it to quarter notes. So just change that to 4 over here. And I'm not going to use ping pong. I'm going to bring down the dry wet a bit and turn up the feedback pretty high to 80%. And let's just hear how that sounds. Okay, and then we can add a little bit of energy to the second half by changing our open hat a bit. At the moment, it's really short. So we can take this fade out and just slightly adjust it to make it a little bit more open. And to do that, we need to turn on automation mode. So it's just this little button up here, make sure it's blue. And then I can adjust this fade out. So if I click on it, there'll be a little red line that pops up over here. We can click there. And then we can create a point, and then we can click here and create another point and drag that point up. And I think we need to drag that point down. And you can see that hat has opened up a bit. And let's just hear it. Yeah, so that's opened up a bit. If you compare these two sections, you can hear it's gone a bit longer. Okay, so now I just feel like the ARP is playing a little bit higher than I would like it to, and I'm going to try and bring it down an octave. So I'm just going to open this up, and we're going to go into the MIDI over here. I'm going to highlight both of them, and then click in here and hit Control A, and then hold Shift and hit and hit down, and then it drops it down an octave. And we're going to turn up the volume here a bit. And then I also want to do a little bit more to this ARP in terms of automation. We're going to go into the frequency over here, and we're just going to do a little bit of automation work. I'm going to click on frequency, and I'm going to just do this by ear. I'm going to click and create random points while I'm playing it. And then I'm going to add another oscillator, I think, to this, just because I want the B section to still be a bit more different. And I think mixing in a new oscillator would be kind of cool. So we're going to go back here to this level, and we're going to automate this. And I'm going to change this wave first to a square wave, to square D. And then you'll hear if I start mixing this in. Gives it a bit of a different character. So now because I've clicked on here, I can automate this. And I think we could probably fade this in from about here and then get this to turn up across this section. So let's just hear how that sounds. I think that's a bit much to come in that high over here. I'm going to bring it down a bit. Bring this down a bit. And I also want to increase the reverb amount a little bit over here. And the delay, I'm going to add a little bit more delay. Just turn up the volume a little bit. And then we're just going to turn up the hi-hats a little bit more, both of them. Let's add this while we're listening to it. Okay, we can't really hear this low perk anymore, so I'm going to turn that up a touch. And we can turn up the snare a bit more. Okay, I just want to repeat these snares over here. I'm going to highlight this section and just hit Control D so that we can hear the snare over here. And to change it up slightly, I'm going to drag this snare across and have it landing on the last kick so that this snare fill is just slightly different. So you've got like an A, B, an A, and a C kind of pattern over there. Okay, now I'm just going to go into the master and add a limiter so that we can just push the volume up a little bit more before we have our final listen. So I'm going to go to the limiter and just turn up the gain a little bit until I see this needle start moving. And I'm also going to add a little glue compressor over here just before the limiter. And we're going to turn on soft clipping, and we're just going to turn up this makeup gain until we see that little light go yellow a little bit. There we go, just a little bit. And that's also going to kind of act like a limiter. So now we've got two small limiters happening, and we've got a little bit of loudness out of this loop. Okay, so let's have a listen to our final loop. Thanks for watching the tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can also support us by visiting us on productionmusiclive.com. Thank you and goodbye.